I want to talk a little bit about world building, specifically after we talked about the camps, because as I'm sure you've noticed from the footage, each of these camps has a very distinct visual style. The game itself has a pretty distinct visual style, even with its clunky old graphics. Because what I think Gothic 1 does better than almost anything else is immersion and world building, which is especially interesting because a lot of it is very simple. It's just done very well in a very cohesive way. In many ways, you could argue that none of these systems are particularly deep, but they're put together in a way that makes it very easy to get drawn into this world. There's a very clear power curve. Everything has this sort of air of mystery to it, like there's little things you're learning as you go, and this is reflected even in just the training that various people give you. The way you level up, you go from feeling like
those who are university educated, like Andreas himself, write in a font that is much bolder, more legible, and neat. Continuing to enforce the idea that Pentiment is a story that is being written as you play, the text appears letter by letter, as if handwritten, accompanied by the sound of a quill scratching against parchment. The intricate Gothic fonts used by educated members of the church appear in outline first, then are filled in. The dialogue of the town's printer, using an early printing press, has their text pressed into the page. Ink bleeds and gradually becomes faded as it runs out, then appears bolder, as if the quill has been dipped. Every character even has their own writing speed and error rate. Often you'll see mistakes or spelling errors, which are erased and rewritten after the sentence completes.
When was the last time you played a sequel to an RPG that took place right after the last game in the series and had characters return from the original? It's not quite so common. The combat's been honed to a more polished state here, and I really enjoyed seeing returning characters join my party again to help me kick ass. This is an amazing sequel in my mind because it does everything the last game did, but expands on just about everything you may have liked. The next game in the series, however, would take a bit of a different approach. Unlike the second game, which refined the experience players already had in the first entry, Arc the Lag combines that unique approach to gameplay with an emphasis on side content.
Fast forward to 2022, and the Switch is lagging behind console tech by nearly 10 years, and this is the system a follow-up to a series that prides itself on insane spectacle has to flaunt its stuff on. If in no other way, the Bayonetta series could have justified further games by implementing fresh new tech to showcase its mechanics in a new, breathtaking way. But it's not really gotten to do that in the last 13 years. Bayonetta 1 had a real next-gen feel to it for the time. You got the sense that what you were seeing would just not have been possible on a PS2 or something, but that feeling hasn't been replicated with the franchise since. One would be inclined to go easy on them if the new title at least remained as nice looking as that first one, despite all.
Let's go back to that title screen for a moment. One of the reasons people play video games is escapism, a way to get lost in another world and take some time away from your own for however long you need or can. The title screen is the last barrier that needs to be crossed before entering a world. It should prime you ready to go, and that's something Koji Kondo understood perfectly when composing this piece. It's not otherworldly, not yet. It has those hints, but it lulls you into a sense of what's to come, or if you're returning, it has become familiar, comforting, like a second home. Almost all of the Zelda title screens do this in some way or another. They manage to capture the tone of its game in a way that makes you feel like you're returning to a place to see the next incantation.
And there's actually a lot of interaction between you and the stage. So I think it's really funny how one of the strongest aspects of this game's design, the levels and environments, are being criticized, where other character action games like Bayonetta 3, I would say have much weaker level design. And that's totally, it's all good, you know, no problems there. Bayonetta 3, we all agree, is a masterpiece, day one, so we can't critique that game's level design, but we will critique Gungrave's Gore's level design, when in my opinion, it's much better. It's much better because, one, it's compressed in, it's focusing on the core combat, you jump in, you're playing through the stage, you're blasting your way through, and the whole time it's giving you variation, but the variation is designed around the core gameplay.
The team also added Donkey Kong Jr., a somewhat surprising addition. According to Miyamoto, it was to celebrate the 10th anniversary of the Donkey Kong Jr. arcade game. Sugiyama also noted that Donkey Kong Jr. was more recognizable from behind than his father, Donkey Kong, because he wore a shirt. The development team now had 7 characters, but needed one more to complete the roster. So they threw in the most common enemy of the Super Mario series, a Koopa Troopa. After a few experiments with character design, the roster was complete. But the Super Mario Kart team didn't stop there. To help differentiate the racers further, they applied attributes such as acceleration, top speed, weight, and handling ability. Mario and Luigi were balanced.
Even the thematic ideas that cast the Brotherhood as objective seekers of truth found connection with movement, as you and your castle peered down through the rabbles of faith and dogma below. You had a literal freedom they did not. Unlike those many debates on how much that really meant with Al Mualim, there was one more thing it had: depth. You'd find it in the relationship of your moveset to the level design. Take the average wall for instance, and pay attention to my speed. Do you see how I started very quickly with the wall run, then slowed once I began to scale it? The simplest form of depth in Assassin's Creed is searching for ways to scale less and to wall run more. What you want are platforms close to the height at which a wall run would end, on which to place your feet, so that you can quickly begin another wall run. In simpler terms, what you want is stairs, and take a look around. There are a lot of stairs to choose from. The cities of Assassin's Creed were an elaborate Kaplunk arrangement of beams, poles, walls, and roofs, a parkour jungle. The skill, of course, was finding the best way to get where you're going in the least amount of time.
Experience so pure and so fun that it transcends its issues, and truly deserves to be considered a jewel in the crown of this franchise. From the very opening moments of Castlevania 4, it's clear that while this is a remake, it's going to be anything but an identical experience to that first 8-bit battle against Dracula. The opening text scroll that so cinematically set up Castlevania 3 has been carried over and reworked. Its allusions to classic pulp serials abandoned in favour of genuine drama and atmosphere. The music is haunting and atmospheric, and the misty image of a broken tomb sets the tone for an adventure that's far darker than anything we've seen before. Thanks to the Super Nintendo's huge advancements in graphical power, almost everything about the series has seen an increase in detail. Backgrounds are now full of coloured, unique elements that all scroll over each other, meaning for the first time in the series, zero additional imagination is required to see the true darkness